Hey everyone, it's the Angry Honey Badger, and it's time for another episode of League Talks. If you have a question for a future League Talks episode, don't be afraid to email me your questions at angryhoneybadger@hotmail.com or sending me a private message on YouTube and labeling the subject as League Talks. We have a lot of new questions coming in today, which is awesome. I was having a hard time getting questions for a little bit, but then after I asked for you guys to send some, I did get a handful, so we're going to be good to go for a little while. But always send me your questions. I try to store them if I can answer them. But other than that, we're just going to be going on that, and yeah, we're going to start answering this. The game in the background is me playing as Soraka top lane against a Riven. It's an awkward combination. Didn't intend to go up there, but it worked out ridiculously well for no apparent reason. So, yeah, that's what's going on in the background. The first question I have for today is, are runes important and why? And when should I get them? This is a good question. It's something that is probably pretty important to address to people who are newer to League of Legends. Yes, runes are important, but I think you can go without them for a while. Let me explain. When you first start the game, you want to buy everything. You start to unlock more and more rune slots as you level up and all of that good stuff, which is great, and you do feel a little bit compelled to get runes. Now, I would honestly hold off from doing this because once you buy tier 1 and tier 2 runes, once you get to tier 3 and you can buy tier 3 runes, they are a lot better than the other tier runes. So don't buy those runes, to be honest. If you buy tier 1 and tier 2 runes, you can't sell them back or anything like that. So it's kind of a waste of IP. I wish I would have known this a little bit sooner when I started playing League of Legends. I bought a few level 1 and level 2 runes. Luckily I didn't buy tons, so I did have some IP saved up to buy tier 3 runes when I did get to that point. But tier 3 runes are all you're going to be using once you are up to that point and you're able to purchase them. So tier 1 and tier 2 runes, they're good for a little bit of time, but they're definitely not good in the long run, and it's just going to be way more hurtful for you to buy them with IP, especially since we all know it does take a while to get your IP up. What I would recommend doing with your IP is either saving it early on to buy tier 3 runes when you're ready, and also to kind of feel out what roles you will be playing with the runes that you're going to purchase. Typically you can buy runes that are going to be maybe more universal depending on the champions that you play. There's a handful of runes that I would say are necessity runes that are just great for wherever player you're playing, but other than that, there's going to be lots of other runes that are going to suit your needs better. Also, if you go look at any of my builds and my videos, you can see that I use a handful of the same style of runes for like all my AP casters pretty much get AP quintessences or AP per level glyphs. Just kind of a standard thing I like to do for most of my AP casters, so you can kind of see which runes I think are the best or strongest. I almost always have armor seals on all of my tanky bruisers or my tanks or my junglers because the armor seals are some of the best seals in the game. So there's just that stuff that you can pay attention to. So those are the things you should be saving up for. Or if you have IP that you want to save up for runes too, but to avoid buying early runes, you can also save up IP to buy champions you want to buy. This is kind of another question I get asked quite a lot. So I'll address it now too. As for the champions I buy, people have asked me, do I buy the 6,300 point IP champions or do I buy the cheaper ones? When I first started playing, I actually started buying some of the cheaper ones that I did want to buy, and then if occasional I really wanted one of the more expensive ones, I would do that. Don't forget, sometimes they will do deals on champions and they will decrease their IP cost over time, but I think it's pretty smart bet to start out with some of the cheaper champions IP wise, so you don't have to worry about spending a little bit. Because if you buy somebody at 6,300 IP and you end up not liking them, I know you can return a couple people now, but it's just not really worth it to spend that and then try to get your money back. So I would recommend buying some of the cheaper champions. Just because they're cheaper doesn't mean they're any worse. It's just they're cheaper because they're either a little bit older or they just have to space them out, so not everything is so expensive. So that's kind of what I would recommend for runes and champions and what you should do with your IP and all of that good stuff. This next question comes in from Iron Raptor 104. He asked me, what is your least favorite champion? This is an interesting question. I'm not sure I have a least favorite champion. There's a few that I don't care for. I think if I did have to narrow it down to one, I think probably my least favorite champion would probably be Janna, just because so many people play her that they think they're good with her and they're not. Like, you've probably heard this from me a few times. I think she is a good champion when she's played well, but I see so many people play her not that well, or they don't support with her that well, that it's just annoying to see her. So when I get one on my team and it shows that they're not completely confident or play her very well, that is kind of annoying, and I guess in that aspect, she's my least favorite champion. If it comes down to champions that I used to not like because of certain reasons, I used to hate Tryndamere. When I first started playing the game, it seems like a lot of people play Tryndamere, and his ultimate is just kind of annoying. Back in the day, I used to not enjoy Karthus as much either, but that was also way, way before I started really getting into the game, because you would get his ultimate, and you would just be like, oh, what do I do now? But that was way back when I first started playing. Other than that, I don't really think there's too many champions I don't like. I mean, there's kind of annoying things about certain ones, and there's a few champions I don't really care to play, but I've actually come around and I can kind of respect most champions for what they are. Luckily, Riot does a good job of keeping them unique and different, so that's kind of a good thing. So, least favorite, it'd probably just have to be Janna if I had to pick one, just because when people play her, it seems like they don't play her that well. I know the top teams can play her really well, and that's awesome. They do great jobs, and they do great work with her, but if you don't know how to play her that well, she is just kind of there to die. So she's probably my least favorite if I had to choose one. The next question that I have today comes in from Sean, and he asks, how would you differentiate the usefulness in getting Athena's to Archangel's staff? Lately in the meta, as they call it, Athena's is a more reliable source of AAP, mana regen, and magic resist. Therefore, does this make it more useful than Archangel's staff? And would there be a particular situation where you would prefer one over the other? This is kind of a cool question, comparing a couple items. And yes, I would say there is some certain situations that you could kind of pick one over the other. Personally, whenever I build a Chalice of Harmony on any champion because they are a mana-heavy champion, or I know I'm going to be spamming their abilities like crazy, I know back before it was smart to go for the Archangels, because then you could just, keep getting the amount of mana increased on your Tear of the Goddess, and then you'd have all that late game mana, which then would reflect your AP damage, which was great, and I love that. But some of the nice things about Athena's is it does give you plenty of AP damage if you just build it outright and you don't have to work it up, and because of its insane mana regeneration, having that Chalice of Harmony built into it, along with all of its other mana regen and all of its other passives, where you get more mana back for kills and assists, it's just kind of the I'm never gonna ever run out of mana item. So it's very good for some of those champions that you're just always spamming your abilities, or you can always run out of mana incredibly quickly. For instance, Kassadin, if you're going to be using his Void Walk over and over and over and over, it's probably a good item to have because he just tears through his mana that way. Orianna would be another great champion to use an Athena's Unholy Grail with, so you can always have your ball moving around and doing things. Also, with these bonuses on Athena's is that cooldown reduction, which then lets you move around her ball more. Another champion like her that's going to use tons of mana, Syndra, another great choice to buy that item for. I always try to get an early Chalice of Harmony at least on her, and then I'll try to build that into the build eventually too. So I think Athena's is actually a really good item, and typically I would love building that into almost any champion that I was using lots of mana with, but there's still a few cases I still think an Archangel Staff is going to be just a little bit of a better item, such as champions like Karthus, where you can farm with your Q up over time. He doesn't completely destroy all of his mana like some of the other champions I just said, but he will use his mana, and it does grant you some mana regen, but then it will also start to stack all of that mana, which then later will reflect your AP damage. So just kind of depends on the champions that you're playing with and which ones you're more comfortable with. In the long run, a staff can give you more AP if you are building other mana items, such as with Rise. It would be a great item with him since he is mana based to do his damage, and you can get that tier, build it into the staff, and then you get all those other items that are going to give you mana, such as like a Frozen Heart or a Banshee's Veil, all of these fun items that help him out, and then all of that other mana just that you have, core mana, is just going to be reflected in your build. So could he also benefit from an Athena's? Yeah, I mean, it probably isn't a horrible thing, but you build so much mana on him anyways, it's almost impossible to completely negate all of your mana and just go through everything, because he just has so much with just the style of build that he is. So there are specifics that you would want to use these items. It just kind of comes down to, Are you going to be spamming so much that you're going to be wiping out your mana? Go with an Athena's. But are you using a little bit of mana that is going to reflect other items that you're going to be buying? Then I'd say Archangels is going to be a slightly better item. So it kind of comes down to a personal preference, but I think Athena's is just a tiny bit better of an item just overall, just with its other stats. But if you do it right with an Archangel staff, you can get an insane amount of damage out of it. So it comes down to how the rest of your build is going to be reflected. That's going to pretty much sum up this episode of League Talks. Like I said, if you have any questions for future episodes, don't be afraid to send them to me, either by sending me a private message on YouTube and title the subject as League Talks, or sending me an email at angryhoneybadger@hotmail.com. Other than that, guys, I'll just see you in the next video.